Monsignor Breyer is going to welcome both bishops. They will come down. I will ask you to welcome them as they come in. From there, Archbishop Carlson will have a few comments that he would like to make, and then he will introduce Archbishop-Elect Rozanski. So once that happens, Archbishop Rozanski will come up and make his comments, and then from there we will allow the media to ask a few questions. When we do that, my colleague Maria Lamakis will guide the media reporters to a microphone that will be center stage. We are going to ask the reporters to keep their questions to two, one question, one follow-up, so that we can give everyone a chance to ask a question of the new Archbishop and also Archbishop Carlson. With that, I will also say that I think we're waiting for both bishops to still come over. Again, like I said, the reporters will have a chance for a follow-up, and then following the reporters' questions, we'll have a quick wrap-up. Archbishop Carlson has a nice gift to offer Archbishop Rozanski, and he'll offer that up. So once the archbishops arrive, we will welcome them and with both music and applause. Thank you all.
Please be seated. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Cathedral of St. Louis on this great day in which I have the privilege to welcome my successor. When I returned from the Vatican last January, and I was asked when I was going to retire, I said, well, I had asked the Holy Father if I could remain through my anniversary. And we celebrated that, of course, on May 23rd. And a few days later, they must have remembered the commitment they made, because they called and said that the Holy Father had accepted my resignation and that you would receive a new bishop. And having celebrated that anniversary, I pray, Archbishop-Elect, that you'll have the same opportunity to serve here for many, many years. I want to share with you that you are receiving from the Holy Father a true man of God. Pope Francis is appointing someone who knows the joy of the gospel. He has a zeal for evangelization and is known throughout the Northeast, from Baltimore until Boston, for his work with peoples of all colors, all creeds. He has the skills of managing a big city, but just as important, has the background at the parish level, having served as a pastor in many different parishes. To my mind, is exactly what we need. Archbishop Rozanski is a native of Maryland, born in Baltimore. He was raised in Fells Point and ordained a priest in the Archdiocese of Baltimore. He served in several different parishes, as I mentioned. Archbishop-Elect Rozanski's episcopal nomination came in July of 2004 when he was first appointed auxiliary bishop for the Archdiocese of Baltimore by Pope John Paul II. On June 19, 2014, Pope Francis appointed him the bishop of the Diocese of Springfield in Massachusetts, where he has served with distinction for the last 6 years. In fact, I believe that you named a school after St. John Paul II. I guess it was a way of saying thank you for making him a bishop. Or maybe it was, what were you thinking? The roles that Archbishop-Elect Rozanski has played for the Church, certainly locally and nationally. He's the Episcopal Moderator of the National Association of Holy Name Societies. He was a member of the National Advisory Council for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops for 3 years. He is the chairman of the Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs Committee for the USCCB, and he's a consultant to the National Association for the Inclusion of Persons with Disabilities. Archbishop-Elect Rozanski, your new ministry includes a community of more than 500,000 Catholics with a deep love for our Lord. Their generosity to their fellow man is laudable. I'm fond of telling people when they ask me about St. Louis, I say the faith has deep roots here. The people are amazingly friendly. The people in this archdiocese are very, very generous. And I believe that at a time like we're going through now, a new look, a new view, a fresh leader is exactly what we need. You'll also come to discover that we have many religious communities here in the Archdiocese of St. Louis, some 80, I understand, and you'll find that they'll be anxiously waiting to invite you to visit their communities. So if you do one a day for the first 80 days here in the Archdiocese, I think you'll make it. We also have vibrant parishes, 182, and you'll find that one of the great strengths of the Archdiocese of St. Louis is the Catholic school system. While the Archdiocese is 42nd in size, when it comes to Catholic schools, we're 8th in the nation among Catholic dioceses. Part of that is because we have such a commitment to education, but also many of the religious communities that were here actually founded religious schools. And so even in a diocese with slightly more than 500,000 people, we still have 24 Catholic high schools and doing very, very well. I was trying to think of something that I could give you as a memento, because I know you're flying back home. And so what I wanted to do was to give you this statue of St. Louis the King. You will find that St. Louis the King was first given to the Archdiocese right after the World's Fair in 1904. And it's been on the hill in Forest Park ever since that time. And when you receive this, you'll notice something unique about the statue, in that the sword is not raised up, but it's raised like a cross. And something that I think many people know, but certainly it's something I found out when I came to the Archdiocese, St. Louis is the only French king that ever became a saint. There are some others, but we won't talk about them now because many people in this Archdiocese have French roots. But in secret, I'll tell you all that I've learned. So I'd like to give this to you and turn the meeting over to you because they're looking forward to hearing what you have to say. God bless you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. And it's wonderful to be with you today, and many thanks for your presence here in this beautiful Cathedral Basilica of St. Louis this morning. Just over 2 weeks ago, I received the very surprising news that our Holy Father, Pope Francis, had named me the 10th Archbishop of St. Louis. Mindful of God's goodness, I wish to express my gratitude to our Holy Father for his trust that he has placed in me, and to Archbishop Christophe Pierre, our papal nuncio to the United States, for this appointment. I also want to thank deeply Archbishop Robert Carlson for his solicitude to me ever since he was informed of my appointment. I know on behalf of all of us that I thank Archbishop Carlson for his service to this Church of St. Louis over these past 11 years, for his steady leadership and living out the gospel message in such a beautiful, humble way. I know that I will count on his wise counsel and his wisdom in the days, weeks, and years ahead. Archbishop, thank you. This is a troubled time for our nation. We're still experiencing the effects of the COVID-19 virus, the death of Mr. George Floyd, and the sad specter of racism that tears at the very fabric of our country. Jesus has entrusted to us, his church, to be his presence in our world, particularly here in the city and the surrounding areas of St. Louis. Jesus did not avoid any person or situation that was uncomfortable. He walked into those difficult circumstances, bringing the healing presence of God. All of us stand in need of that healing presence, personally, communally, and as a nation. It is my hope that called to lead this Church of St. Louis, God's grace will be in abundance in helping me to be part of that healing process and resolution to all of the daunting issues that we face. No leader, though, can do this alone. We must work together if we truly want to realize the mandate of Jesus to bring justice and peace to our families, our communities, our nation, and world. Over these past 6 years, I've been graced to serve as the Bishop of Springfield, Massachusetts. The good people of Springfield are hearing this news today, just as you are. I want to thank God for these past 6 years and to tell the people of Springfield how grateful I am to them for their welcome to me when I first arrived, for their collaboration with me over these 6 years. And I want them to know they are in my prayers as they now experience this time of tradition. Goodbyes are never easy, but we remain close in faith. As the installation on August 25th draws near, I look forward to getting to meet the priests, deacons, women and men religious, and lay faithful of the Archdiocese of St. Louis. I humbly ask for your prayers and pledge to you that I will do my best to serve the Lord and you, his people here in the Archdiocese of St. Louis. Again, thank you very much. I would also like to say a few words in Spanish. Queridos hermanos en Cristo, con gran sorpresa me enteré de que el Papa Francesco me ha nombrado el 10º arzobispo de St. Louis. Con un corazón agradecido a Dios Todopoderoso, agradezco al Papa Francesco la confianza que ha depositado en mí y agradecida a su excelencia, el arzobispo Christophe Pierre, por este nombramiento. El arzobispo Carlson ha sido tan amable al darme la bienvenida a esta archidiócesis y también le estoy agradecido. Mis queridos hermanos, nos enfrentamos a muchos desafíos en estos días, que el virus corona, el gran malestar por la desigualdad racial en nuestra nación nuestra necesidad de una reforma migratoria integral. Trabajemos juntos para hacer de esta tierra una que resuene con verdadera justicia, igualdad de trato y oportunidades para todos. Pido su oración como me preparó para venir aquí como su arzobispo y saber que usted está en el mío. Muchísimas gracias, hermanos y hermanas. Thank you all very much. It's a joy and a privilege to be called to serve as the 10th Archbishop of St. Louis. Thank you.
Thank you to both Archbishop Carlson and Archbishop Rozanski. We're going to now set up a microphone in the middle of the aisle. My colleague Maria Lemekis will direct reporters one at a time. We want to ensure social distancing. And again, we ask that you limit your questions to two, one question and then one follow-up. Please, when you come to the mic, identify who you are and what network you're with or what news organization you're with, please. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and speak through a mask. Welcome to St. Louis. My name is Jesse Bogan. I'm a reporter for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Narrowing it to two questions. You spoke in Spanish. What can you really do to make the Archdiocese more inclusive? One time I interviewed an African-American man here who was a FedEx driver for a couple years. He told me that no one in this building ever invited him to Mass or to pursue the Catholic faith. What do you say to that? What can be done?
It's my habit, and especially over these past months, having a little extra time on my hands, of walking through my neighborhood in Springfield. And I walk purposefully each day down one street because there's usually a gathering of people outside who are neighbors. And right after the death of Mr. Floyd, one of the gentlemen there said to me, "You know, Bishop," he said, "this is what we need to do. We need to get together, to talk with one another, to know each other." He said, "If we know each other as neighbors, then we know each other as people." And really, if we look at the ministry of Jesus, that is what Jesus did. He approached everybody who came to him. He was not afraid to name, as I said in my remarks, those difficult situations. But Jesus was always reaching out to people, no matter who they were. He got criticized for it. He got criticized because he went against the standards of his day. But Jesus taught by example and teaches us by example. And I think Pope Francis does the same thing. And really, this all begins in getting to know one another, reaching out to each other, and seeing that each person in his and her dignity has so much to contribute to our working together. So that would be my answer. I learned it in walking the streets of Springfield, certainly learned it before then, but it was brought to my attention in a greater way then.
Okay, thank you. The follow-up, Archbishop Carlson has been here for numerous years, and we've gotten to know him well in his leadership style, his personality. What's going to be different with you? What do you want to do differently? Do you foresee yourself following straight in his footsteps? He's even calling for a fresh look here in his comments. do you see yourself, what's going to set yourself on a different course than what Archbishop Carlson has done here at this point in time, 2 weeks into it? Please do the best you can.
Thank you very much. First of all, I wish to say I have always admired Archbishop Carlson and his leadership, and he is well known throughout the Bishops' Conference as being a firm, steady leader, truly dedicated to the gospel. If there's anything that I wouldn't change about myself, it's that I'd follow Archbishop Carlson in that way. My real goal over these next weeks and months, and I might even say next year, 2 years, is to get to know the people of this Archdiocese, get to know the needs of the Archdiocese. And then that helps me form what I can do as the Archbishop of St. Louis. I don't think I can come here with a set agenda. I don't think I could come here with preconceived notions unless I have the ability to learn about the people and the hopes and the dreams of this Archdiocese. So I got a learning curve, and I know that.
Forgive me, Peter. I meant to ask this in my question. As we know, here in St. Louis and across the world with the Catholic Church, the clergy sex abuse scandal, do you plan on handling that in a similar fashion as Archbishop Carlson? Here in St. Louis, we've had lists that have come out. One complaint is that we didn't identify the churches where the parishes where the clergy served. Do you plan on continuing that practice here? I mean, they're planning a protest actually here about your appointment, SNAP is, later today, and saying that you haven't been transparent in Springfield. So I'd be remiss to not ask about this. Can you please speak to that?
Certainly. As in Springfield, I have been working on having as much transparency as possible. Over the past few months, we developed a memorandum of understanding that was approved among the district attorneys and the Diocese of Springfield. I have called in a judge to look at how we handled cases in the past and up to the present time in the diocese, who will issue an independent report. I'm expecting that report to come out soon. So I feel that really healing begins in the transparency. So I know that we can't seem to do things perfectly, but we're trying as best we can to be as transparent, as proactive as we can. So certainly we'll follow the Dallas Charter, the norms set forth by the Conference of Bishops, the laws of the state of Missouri, of the city of St. Louis. So all of that will certainly be followed to the letter of the law. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Alyssa Toomey with KMOV. And just to start, we've seen parishes having to close or merge over the last several years. What do you hope for the future of St. Louis?
Certainly, we know that we are a very transient country. People move from one place to another, perhaps more than anywhere else in the world. And those demographics certainly affect our parishes. So I think we have to take a realistic look at working with the people of the parishes. First of all, I don't want to see a community that's burdened by buildings. Buildings are important, but buildings are not the church. It is we, the people, who are the church. So I think we need to look out first, how is a community living out its commitment to the Lord Jesus, not just to a building, but to one another. And so in looking forward, if that has to take place, there would be discussions, process, and ways of working amongst 2 or 3 parishes to see what can be done.
And then just kind of piggybacking off of another question that you had previously, you spoke about the sexual abuse, that you had seen some of it in Massachusetts, and trying to be as transparent as possible. Some of the specific grievances that some people had was that there were 3 priests removed, but they hadn't been named. So there were calls for more transparency. So can you respond to those kind of specific transparency?
Certainly. First of all, there needs to be established a credible accusation. And at this point, against those three priests, it has not been established that they are credible accusations. As a matter of fact, for one of those priests, the local district attorney has cleared him, and the diocese is just finishing its report to our review board, and that will be done shortly. So the one of the three has already been cleared. The other two, we are still working with the district attorney and their investigations to find out if that's a credible report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome to town. Vic Faust from Fox 2. Welcome to our Catholic city. Some of the serious questions were asked already, but in moving forward, what kind of a message do you have for Catholic families, maybe Catholic parents throughout the St. Louis area? Piggybacking off one of the questions, it's no secret that attendance is down, weddings are down, baptisms are down. What do you want to say to the people of St. Louis?
I think we've been in a model for many, many decades, for when the immigrants first came over from Europe, that the church was the center of their lives because it really was the place where their cultures were continued, where they could speak the languages of their native country. We're finding that here in the immigrants who are still coming, that the church is the place where they gather because that's the place where they can preserve their heritage, their culture, and their language. These are different times. And I'm currently reading a book that was sent to me on the writings of St. John Paul II. And he writes about St. Paul and the Areopagus in being able to speak to those who were worshiping different gods. And they had one altar that was inscribed to the unknown God. And what St. Paul did in speaking to the people there in Greece was to say, I want to share with you who that unknown God is. And he has come to us in Jesus Christ. And I think that's what we have to speak in our world today, and that's what we have to live. That there is a longing in our hearts for something more. We're reminded our hearts are never satisfied until they're satisfied in God. But we have to have that message clear, distinct, proclaim it joyfully and with witness. And disciples attract disciples. So I think we all have to be conscious of that. It's not just up to the Archbishop or to the auxiliary bishop or to the priest and those who minister in our parishes, but each one of us as Catholics, by our lives, are those who reach out and evangelize. When I would meet with people who were coming through the RCIA program into the Catholic Church and ask the question, what made you want to become a Catholic? Inevitably, the answer was, I know this person, and this person is so joyful and has such peace, and I wanted to have what that person had. So we are the evangelizers. I think Pope Francis has really reminded us of that in the joy of the gospel. And I call the joy of the gospel the Magna Carta for the church in the 21st century. So we're all reminded that we have to be joyful disciples. Pope Francis said in there, one of my favorite lines in that whole great writing, he says, Christians should not look as though they're coming from a funeral all the time. So if we're a joyful people, if we're a peace-filled people, then we will certainly attract disciples to the Lord. But all of us need to be in that work.
And finally, who are you more? Who are you as a person so that people can understand what you're about?
The happiest day of my life was the day that I was ordained a priest. The happiest part of the past 36 years was my 20 years in the parish. I am a parish priest, and that's all that I really ever wanted to be. I was reminded over time that the Lord wants you where He sends you. Do not refuse an assignment. Do not refuse a responsibility. So when I was asked to be an auxiliary bishop in Baltimore 16 years ago, it was a great difficulty for me to give up parish ministry. But in my heart, I could go back to a parish tomorrow and continue to love the Lord. So I'll have to look upon the Archdiocese of St. Louis as a larger parish, and I'm the parish priest of a larger parish.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Excellency. Adam Wright from Covenant Network Catholic Radio.
Great.
We've talked about some very difficult situations facing the world and the church this morning. And I'm curious, your Episcopal model, serve the Lord with gladness. In spite of new challenges through the pandemic and the current state of our country, how has your Episcopal motto guided you in your ministry as a bishop or manifested itself in your service of the church?
Thank you very much. I chose serve the Lord with gladness when I was named an auxiliary bishop in Baltimore. That's from Psalm 100. And I chose it for two reasons. One was I wanted to have an Episcopal motto that had an action in it. Serve. Serve is an action word. And secondly, because serving the Lord means if we're truly following His ways, then we can only have hearts choosing serve the Lord with gladness. It's helped me because I've realized that there can be situations that are upsetting, there can be situations that are difficult. But if one truly has the joy and the peace of the Lord in his and her heart, then those troubled times can be overcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Bishop-Elect Rozanski. I'm Jennifer Brinker. I'm from the St. Louis Review. We're the newspaper of the Archdiocese of St. Louis. Welcome to
Thank
the
you.
Archdiocese. We're very excited to have you with us.
Thank you.
I had a question about your experience as a parish priest for 20 years in Baltimore. How has that pastoral experience shaped the leadership into the leader that you've become now as a bishop? How has that formed you?
When I was first ordained as an auxiliary bishop, I realized that what I missed most about is a relationship. And I missed those relationships that I had as a parish priest. That was a sacrifice to give up. But it's also taught me too that being a bishop does not mean being removed from that sort of interaction, of ministry. Of being involved in the lives of people and of reaching out. So basically at heart, I'm still a parish priest. I treasure my experiences.
Question I had for you is, obviously you have a very close relationship. Your parents are still with us here on this earth. And you have two brothers. How are they reacting to this news of your appointment here to St. Louis?
Mom and dad are always mom and dad. And so before I flew to St. Louis, I flew down to Baltimore, and I stayed a couple days with my parents. And I told them the news that I was named Archbishop of St. Louis. My mother said this to me: I told you this when you were named a bishop. I told you this when you were named to Springfield. But they said that they support me, their prayers are with me, and they have been my rock, my stronghold. My parents will be married 64 years in October, and always have shown love to us, a deep faith, a deep love of the church. And when I was there, we prayed the rosary together every night. So thanks to all of you for being here, and it's really a joy to come to serve the church at St. Louis. Thank you.
Congratulations, Archbishop Rozanski. We're all very excited to have you here in St. Louis. We thank the Holy Father. We thank Springfield, Massachusetts. We thank Baltimore for sending you to us. More details will be offered in the coming weeks. Thank you to the media. Thank you for all.